that go? I would suggest anything that's valuable is worth protecting, and when we have these conversations, this is about valuing our children, our relationships with them, their future relationships, our relationships right now, our minds, our hearts, our communities. Pornography is often talked about as almost a victimless entertainment. While it's sexually explicit images and or videos of one or more people with the intent to arouse, typically found on the internet but found everywhere, the largest demographic now watching is ages 11 to 17. The average age of first exposure to pornography in Canada, does anyone know offhand what that would be? Average age? 8 years old. So that's an average. That means you have very young children that are being exposed. What we know about pornography is it's available, it's affordable, it's anonymous, it's airbrushed, means a lot of it's not real, and it's accelerated. So it has an ability to put the brain, almost hijack the dopamine system, put it into overdrive. And whereas churches years ago, not even years ago, but like a church today, you might have a few people who are in a, let's say a size of 200, you'd have several people who struggle with alcoholism. So that's a serious addiction. Now you're looking at maybe sometimes up to upwards of 50% of the population in the church struggling with unwanted interest in pornography. So it's like what's happened? We're seeing 1 in 3 kids seeing hardcore porn by the age of 12. Like, what is this all about? It's about money. It's $100 billion industry annually. The sites receive more website traffic than Twitter, Instagram, Netflix, Pinterest, and LinkedIn combined. So it's all about money. It's not about, we want people to have great experiences, and the bottom line is it's an exchange for money. How do kids see it? Well, this would be, the first exposure to pornography has been mapped out as this in one of the studies. About 61% of females will accidentally see it, and 50% of males will accidentally see it. Only 40% of males will seek it out, and 32% seek it out. Only 10% will seek it out, and only 7% will seek it out, and the rest would be shown it. So it's either an accident, they're just typing in Disney or a toy or a game, because what we know is pornography producers are actually targeting kids, and they're going through toy sites and game sites. So that things are popping up, and kids we're not expecting to see what they're seeing. And then others, as I mentioned, are shown it. Like a lot of kids will have devices available to them, and they'll show other kids what they see. 10 years ago, I was invited into a school in Kelowna, and the teacher who had seen me in another school, he said, "I'd like you to come to my grade 5 class." And I said, "I don't usually work with kids that young." He said, "Please, I've seen you've dealt with the most unruly students. There's a certain school that's known for that in my hometown." He goes, "If you can handle that, you can handle the grade 5s. I'm like, "Yeah, but there's a developmental age." He said, "Darlene, the whole back row are sharing bestiality videos. So you have to come in. Their first perceptions of sex are having sex with animals. Please." They're all joking and sending them to each other, right? And so this was 10 years ago, and I remember thinking, well, that's highly unusual. And then I went deep dives into researching and realizing it's not unusual at all now. And when we talk about struggles, it's not just a guy issue. That may have been the majority years ago, but not anymore. Women struggle with pornography too. Pornography comes through music videos, through Netflix series, through ads sometimes, and sometimes it's just straight up opportunity. Like one grandma shared with me, she said, "I was just looking up a peach pie recipe, and all of a sudden I'm watching full-on pornography." And the struggle is not just exposure, because there's different levels of it. There is exposure, and inadvertently, average it says by here 8. Occasional, when somebody's intentionally viewing pornography, but not frequently. Then there's intensive, it's becoming an involuntary habit. And then for some, it actually turns into an addiction where, despite them trying incessantly to stop, it becomes, like I said, a dopamine hijack for their brain. they're saying, when we go back to how it's affecting women specifically, the American Psychological Association is concluding that exposure to sexualized material leads to body shame, appearance anxiety, eating disorders, and low self-esteem. And that's not even including how it affects their view of sex itself. So there's an actual altering of the brain's hardwiring.
Recently, a supercomputer managed to do what no computer had ever done: simulate 1 whole second of human brain activity. How long did it take the computer to accomplish the task? 40 minutes. That might seem like a long time if, like most of us, 1 second of brain activity amounts to something like, "I want a sandwich." But your brain transmits more messages than all the phone calls across the world, sifting through a non-stop flow of input from the eyes, ears, and other senses, even if you're just making a sandwich. Consider the brain. 50 billion neurons, a trillion glial cells, 4 miles of blood vessels, all dedicated to making an enjoyable life possible for you. Need food, shelter, and sleep? Your brain is designed to go after whatever it takes to survive. Your brain is also wired for companionship, with neurochemicals released in response to intimacy. Even if you're alone, staring at pornographic images on a screen. In that moment, the brain's powerful machinery kicks into gear, bonding us in different ways to images on the screen. Studies show that over time, many can develop a compulsion to pornography, causing them to need more of it, more often, and more hardcore versions just to feel normal. Just like with mood-altering drugs. The amazing brain, in other words, can be hijacked. Image after image, your expectations of sex, love, and relationships can evolve, with your own sexual preferences changing dramatically as you continue to seek out more shocking content. No surprise, then, that in comparison, people and activities you used to really care about seem less interesting. The good news is that the same processes that shape the brain in one direction can shape it in another. Hundreds of research studies prove that brain pathways can move in healthier directions. That's true for all of us, and there are lots of ways to help that happen. The only question that remains is what pathways you'll choose for yourself. So choose reality. Choose love. You were born with a machine in your head more powerful than the world's fastest computer, your brain. Take care of it. It was made to take care of you.
And that's the really good news, that our brain can be altered and re-altered. It can be wired. Our brain is the most moldable part of our body and will change until the day we die, depending on what we watch, what we listen to, what we talk about, what we focus on. So, do I have hope for people? Absolutely. Do I see people actually go from a very focused on an unhealthy, actually dangerous mode of loving another person, that they would even call loving, to being able to be in a healthy, powerful, deeply satisfying relationship? Yes. Does it take work? Yes. How many of you have ever remember crying over trying to tie your shoelaces? Anyone else cry? Just me? Okay, I really struggle with tying. Okay, this has never happened before. Great. See, that's why I don't wear shoelaces. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I can now tie my shoelaces and talk at the same time. It's amazing. Why? Because I practice things. I practiced over and over again. Some of you are great at shooting hoops. I'm not. Some of you maybe can play the violin. I can't. So my brain looks different than yours. If I would practice something, it would start looking similar in that area of my brain. Now, I talk a lot with, do a lot of speaking with hockey teams, and they understand muscle memory. And when they come to these hockey schools, they, or joining these teams, they're coming from far away, and they're having these coaches tell them, hey, you skate okay, but you need to, really change that style of skating, because it's not going to get you to the NHL, it's not going to get you to the Olympics. And that's their goal. And then I'll ask them, is it difficult to break that habit? And they'll be like, absolutely. Can you do it? Absolutely, if you think it's worth it. So habits, absolutely, they can be changed. But we know how, when a habit kind of finds a groove, it sticks. And some of us have been trying to stop interrupting people, or stop chewing our nails, or little things we go, oh, that really bugs me that I do that, because it can come so naturally. And yet, if there's a focused attempt to do something about it, our brain absolutely has the power to be rewired. The scriptures call it renewing of our mind. Yay! Like that we actually can renew our mind. That's the good news. That's the way God made us. Norepinephrine hormone is called the paperclip hormone. When we view a shocking image, it paperclips into the back of our brain, and so it can be pulled out later on to think about. Now, when these studies were first done, they thought the male brain and the female brain were the same. Like we could have all told them that's not true, but they only say the male brain. So this is all, if you ask me female brain, I have no idea. But what they found is it takes 20 on an average, for the average male brain, it takes on average 20 seconds to paperclip that image, that shocking image in the back. And a shocking image would be included pornography, okay? So 20 seconds of looking at an image, whether still or active, for it to paperclip. How long do you think it takes for an average child's brain to paperclip in the back? Guessing? 2 seconds, 0.3. So they don't have a chance to respond. And that's why shame is not our friend in this discussion. And if you're a follower of Jesus, it is not our friend at all. It doesn't mean we don't experience it. It means we know what to do with it. We get to take it to the cross because that's why he died. For our sin, for our shame, it's his. What more do we want him to do? Right? So we get to take that and push out. If we bring shame into a conversation, if we try to shame somebody, we will just drive that behavior underground and they will hide it. Because shame goes beyond guilt. It's the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we're flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. The fear that something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. And we want our kids, specifically, because many of us are here for our kids, we want them to know there's nothing you can do that's going to stop me from loving you. I'm not going anywhere. I am for you. I want to be here. I want to be your parent. I want to be your grandparent. I want to be your sister. I'm grateful for this position in your life. You're so precious to me. So dopamine that I referred to as kind of like hijacking, dopamine is that feel-good or seeking hormone that activates the pleasure and reward circuits of the brain. It's a release from stressful situation, which in turn produces a desire to repeat an experience. So the reasons people will turn to pornography or return to it essentially, because a lot of times it's inadvertently they're exposed to it. It might be curiosity, but it also, there's this stimulation that it involves that creates a desire to repeat that experience. Because that's what dopamine essentially does. It says, do it again. Do it again, do it again. With like me and Miss Vicky's sour cream and chips, right? Just do it again. Have another bite. Even if you're going to have a stomach ache after you eat the whole bag all by yourself, you know, that's the problem with dopamine, is it's values neutral. It doesn't tell you if what feels good in the moment is good long term for you. So you can get with addictive substances, and you can get it with fun stuff like, you know, drinking water. You're going to get dopamine when you have that. You're going to get dopamine when somebody gives you a hug that you like. If you don't like them, you're not going to get dopamine. It's going to be like, ooh, get off me, please. No, I don't. Just take a shower. So this dopamine thing has been talked about a lot and actually can really surprise people. So the wiring of the altering of the brain is significant. This is Dr. Simone Kuhn, who's a neuroscientist, psychologist.
So we put people in the scanner and looked at their brain activity. We were interested in what effects do potentially long-term usage of pornographic material have on brain structure. So basically we found in our study that the gray matter in the reward center is generally smaller in those people who watch more porn. What we also did is look at how the brain region that is smaller in structure, namely the reward region, is connected to other parts in the brain. We found that the more porn people watch, the less well the reward region is connected connected to prefrontal cortex, that their prefrontal cortex was less well able to control activity in the reward region. So the connection between prefrontal cortex, that is the braking mechanism, onto the reward system was less strong. People need to watch more or get more interesting and novel stuff to get the same level of activity in the reward system, and it seems to be that people then tend to look for more and more extreme things, and that then means you're going to be dissatisfied with your own relationship, and there you might be running into a risk of actually sort of misconditioning yourself onto stimuli that you're never going to get. My hypothesis was that the ventral striatum and the reward region should be bigger in those people watching pornography, and it's exactly the other way around. So
were you shocked?
Yes.
So not only regular consumption of pornography lessens the braking mechanism, the ability to have self-control, it also lessens the satisfaction. So you have to look for weirder and stranger stuff. So I've met people who are like, 2 years ago, there's no way you would have told me that I would look at kitty porn. There's just no way. And 2 years later, it just has to get weirder. It has to, you can train your brain for anything. You really can. And then they're horrified with themselves, and yet they find a compulsion to continue. So this striatum, I don't even know if that's how you say it, shown in red, is linked to motivation. So it's smaller than the more porn consumption the participants report. Right? So motivation, suddenly all they want is more porn, right? And when I say that, that's how our brain is wired, that overstimulation of this. We see that athletes, so when I come in, a lot of times I'm asked to come in to talk about this as well as healthy relationships within athletic groups, because they see pornography lowers self-regulation, motivation, self-satisfaction, and focus, the things you need if you're going to be focused on any kind of success. Another area that has drawn a lot of attention is how the brain actually starts affecting the body with pornography use. At what age do you imagine somebody starts needing Viagra, which would be for erectile dysfunction? So originally it was created for older people. In the 1990s, 2% of men younger than 40 and 86% of men older than 80 reported erectile dysfunction. In 2012, 30% of men between the ages of 18 and 24 reported erectile dysfunction in a Swiss survey. In 2016, 27 to 37% of males between 15 and 27 reported erectile dysfunction. It became so common that, and that's years ago, that's almost 10 years ago. I haven't found any more recent ones. I was working with a group of young women recently at the Pregnancy Care Center, and they when I was talking about pornography and its effects, one girl goes, she goes, all of my friends who are in their 20s, all of the guys are on Viagra. And she said, I don't think they understand the link. See, perhaps the most convincing evidence linking pornography to sexual dysfunction is the return of normal sexual functioning after a patient abstains from internet pornography with masturbation for a period of time. For some, it takes 3 months. For some, it takes 6 months. For some, it takes 9 months before their body is able to have normal erections again. And when I share this with students, they're like, oh my goodness, oh, that's, yeah, so do you want to be dependent on a pill, which actually is not very reliable and frustrating and all that. So there's a desensitization happens for needing more variety to get sexually excited, and sexual conditioning, so a screen becomes more important, more arousing than a real person. So fasting actually from pornography and masturbation results in return of normal erectile dysfunction, but it's important for their adolescents to know that recovery takes longer in adolescence, most likely because of early sexual conditioning. What's not fair about pornography, and any addiction actually, is the earlier someone becomes addicted, or becomes their norm, the longer it takes to get free. Does it mean it's impossible? No. But their brain is changing so fast, and it's holding on to memory in such a significant way. They're gonna need lots of support, lots of encouragement. You're gonna be okay, I'm with you for the long haul, both guys and girls. I started becoming interested in pornography because of the way it was affecting relationships, because that's what I talk about. So this gives you a little insight.
13th century, the Emperor Frederick II decided to conduct an experiment. He wanted to know what language children would speak on their own if no one ever taught them any. He assigned nurses to 50 babies, telling them to feed and bathe the children in absolute silence. No speaking, no eye contact, no lullabies or cuddles. So, what language did they speak? Frederick never found out. All of them died. To this day, it's well known that human beings suffer when they're deprived of love and touch. Even when they're taken care of in other ways, those deprived of affection grow sickly. Their physical and mental development is stunted, and in some cases, they even die. Consider the heart. Consider the things we do every day for connection and for love. People run into burning buildings and dive into frigid lakes for love. They move their homes, change their names, spend their fortunes, and step in front of bullets, all in this passionate pursuit of the human heart, to love and be loved. This longing is so powerful that we will sometimes pursue any way of feeling connected, even when that involves nothing more than pornographic images on a screen. When the images end, of course, there is no one to talk with, no one to share with, and none of the give and take of being with another person. And despite claims that porn will make you a better lover, study after study confirms the opposite. Porn users express less love for their partners and become more critical of appearances and less able to perform sexually. Other studies found users more disrespectful and aggressive within intimacy and less willing to stick around in a relationship. Bottom line, pornography is a scientifically proven guide to being a bad lover in virtually every imaginable way. In addition to impacting who we love and how we see them, it changes how much we're able to actually express that love. So think twice about giving your heart to something without a pulse. Sure, machines can meet all sorts of physical needs. A furnace can keep you warm, a respirator can keep you breathing, but no machine can ever satisfy your basic need to bond with another human being. Choose love, real love, which is the sweetest of all human experiences. Accept no frauds and no substitutions. The deepest needs of your own fragile heart can only be met in the fragile heart of another person.
What I love about this video is it acknowledges that there's a deep desire for love. So it's not that the deepest desires in our heart are wrong. It's just in ways that they can be met that actually hurt us more than help us. They can get us further away from what we really want rather than closer to. It damages our relationships. Marriages in which one person has a pornography problem are often plagued by less intimacy and sensitivity, as well as more anxiety, secrecy, isolation, and dysfunction. The amount of people that I've met who said, we thought that if we just used pornography until we got married, then it would just disappear. The need to engage in pornography wouldn't be necessary. We have a real person. That's unfortunately not how it works, because pornography actually trains the brain, not for real people, but for fantasy. And teens who have grown up with the internet have created pathways in the brain that only porn can satisfy. So they'll actually talk about a numbing in their brain. Like everything becomes boring. Now that's not the same thing as the last thing I talked about, how in teen years dopamine halves, it just drops by half and then starts leveling out in adulthood. Things that used to be exciting, Christmas, right, are just not as exciting in teen years, and that's normal. That's normal. But this is like a numbness to joy. That's one of the most amazing things about when people find themselves free from pornography. They'll say, I'm noticing things like the leaves are turning colors. And I'm like, my senses are alive. I'm really appreciating a good conversation with a friend. It's like they're able to wake up to areas because there's a numbing that's happening. Now, again, I'm not even talking about the spiritual aspect of this, but these are just what scientists are finding out, right? An inability to bond with real people. There's a loss of interest. Pornography decreases your interest in real relationships, increases interest in porn, so that the marital infidelity rate goes up by more than 300%. Chrissy Outlaw is a well-known pornography actor, and she married somebody and said, you know what, I became the fantasy man wanted to be, and it still wasn't enough. He wanted porn instead of me. We're talking about over 62% of marriages ending in divorce involve at least one of the partners having an obsessive interest in pornography, and sometimes it's both. I've talked to several people who's in their marriages, they actually, when they desire sex, the woman goes into her bedroom and watches TV, and he goes on the couch and watches, they both go and watch pornography and satisfy themselves, because the other partner, even though they're married, is not able to satisfy them. And yet, pornography leaves people feeling dissatisfied still. This is a really long quote that I put in there because it was just the best thing I'd ever heard. Her name's Louise Perry. She's a feminist who's not a Christian. I use almost no Christian, I don't know that I use any Christian resources because of the places I go to. But it's amazing how the science is just backing up God's word. It's crazy. Not crazy, it makes sense. In porn, they're typically exposed to from childhood, women are shown begging men for painful or degrading sex acts. And when young men start having sex offline, they will likely encounter women, themselves schooled by porn and pop culture, who hide their distress, fake their orgasms, and work hard to avoid catching the feelings. We should hardly be surprised when after all this, many men assume women don't really mind being relegated to a good time only. They don't mind being treated like an object. A man may be genuinely perplexed by the unhappiness of a woman he's been hooking up with for months or longer. After all, the education he's received from porn all his life suggests she enjoys it, and she seemed okay with the arrangement thus far. The woman may think something is wrong with her too. After all, the women in porn seem to love the very things that leave her feeling broken down, self-conscious, unsatisfied, and crazy. In so many ways, porn creates a tragic misunderstanding on both sides. So if pornography is our educator, right now in North America, it is the biggest sex educator. If it's their educator, they're gonna miss each other. Women thinking, I should like this, and yet I don't. And often entering into marriage then, after having pretended that they enjoyed it, going, I don't want sex anymore. And the man coming into a relationship thinking, this is what women like. I mean, the amount of stories out there that have been, they're not just made up, they're not just anecdotal. People coming to their lives, but also articles on like a sheriff that was called in the United States to a lookout point because the people were hearing distress in the car. So he arrives only to find the guy choking a girl while he's kissing her. She's upset, made so much noise around it, but he thinks this is her way of showing she likes it. She's supposed to be choked because that's all he's seen. That's normal. And her response, he's seen in pornography, and that's exciting for her. She's seeming upset, but she's not really. Am I making sense? Okay. I know it's distressing, but it's just accurate. So I'll tell students, and I'll tell everybody, because I do workshops from apparently now 5th grade to 75-year-olds have been in my class and they're coming to learn for themselves, not necessarily for somebody they love. A real body isn't good enough. If pornography is going to be your school, a real body is not going to be good enough. One body will not be good enough. And therefore your partner's body won't be good enough. So the answer to all that will be more porn, which makes sense because it's $100 billion industry. So anyone who says, oh, I'm just going to send this picture to my partner of me, in a pornographic pose or whatever, like it's called sexting, or sending nudes, it's like, oh, they're gonna watch pornography, so I might as well send them something so they can watch me. They don't understand, you can't compete with pornography. There's 100 billion images out there and growing, most which were not actually consensually put up there. And sometimes were incredibly graphic and dangerous, and I've never met somebody, because I worked quite a bit, monthly, I'm working with women who come into recovery homes. And they are women who have sold their bodies to maintain their addiction. They will talk about when they were abused, or and every time they'll say it was videoed. So that stuff is out there for everyone to see. And it's not always women, right? We know that men and boys are being abused. So it's not, again, but it is the majority of the violence on pornography is perpetrated towards women. John Mayer is a famous singer-songwriter, and this picture was taken years ago. He was dating Katy Perry at the time. He dated some of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. And he was asked in a magazine, so, hey, John, if you got to choose a Friday night between being with a beautiful woman and being guaranteed you'll have sex with her and pornography, what would you choose? Like, home with your computer. And he was like, oh, computer every time. It's like, what? And a couple months later, I saw on the front of a magazine as I was walking through a grocery store, I saw him just saying he was getting help. He was like, pornography's taken over my life. Like, people in the celebrity world are starting to come out and say, you know what, pornography's really messed things up for me. But to admit that is quite something, because that's a very personal thing to then share with the whole world. If you look at what is fake for too long, you'll begin to find fault for what is real. So we're seeing young women, young men, older women, older men becoming very disgusted with their own bodies, and a lot of self-hatred going on because they're comparing themselves to something that's not real. The porn effect is that no actually means yes, right? So as I mentioned, the guy choking the girl, in regular scripts, so of course I don't watch pornography, but I'm regularly kept up with the latest research. The regular scripts are somebody saying no, or protesting, or even fighting that person off, but in the end, they look like they liked it. They were fine with it, or their face looks kind of blank, like it's 95% of the time. So watching something over and over again, if you repeat a line often enough, long enough, loud enough, it just starts to sound true, right? And so if the church, if parents, if grandparents, if we don't talk about what loving relationships look like, if we don't explain that loving relationships also apply to sexual relationships, like loving, caring, thoughtful, tender, all that carries over, how are they supposed to find out? Like, the majority of students will say, where else am I supposed to look, right? Because if we ever say to our kids, they ask a question, and we ever say to them, you're too young, we're essentially saying, Google it. Google will tell them. Who knows why? And I know it's not fair, and it's not right, and yet our kids are so precious, and our friends are so precious. So many times when I do these adult workshops on this, adults are like, I had no idea. I mean, I had one woman come in, she goes, I've been showing my child pornography, but only ethical pornography, because I wanted him to know, what, and she goes, I never thought that actually could harm him. She had no idea. So the messaging is no means yes. Rape is a joke. It's not taken seriously at all. It was years ago, I was in a small town, and at a school, just about to do my first class, a grade 7 student calls out to another one in the hallway, rape you this weekend. Like, 1 out of every 3 Canadian women, 1 out of 5 Canadian men have been sexually abused. So there's a really good chance there's people in that hallway that are being re-traumatized, being told it's nothing. See, because that Lady Gaga song, what you want with my body, but you can't touch my heart or my mind. Interesting lyrics, physiologically impossible. Because if I take a hammer out of the bag and I smash your toe, right, you're not going to just have a physical feeling, you're going to have thoughts. This woman is trying to hurt me. I need to get out of here, or I need to find a hammer. You're going to have emotions. You're going to either be enraged or fearful, right? Like, so the idea that we can just separate ourselves, that's a Gnostic, that's a very old deception. But people are being told that all the time. You can separate. One of the best books I've ever had, our whole leadership training was Love Thy Body by Dr. Nancy Piercy. Amazing. Covers all the pieces that are really coming at our how our bodies, don't matter. They're kind of separate. It's amazing. People are treated like parts: usable, disposable, and replaceable. So when somebody's watching their pornography, whether it's on a movie, right, or